Frank, you've obviously known Brad for a real long time. You know how his teams play. In scouting this team, have you seen anything different from what they usually have done the past 7 years?
Uh, I I don't want to speak for him, but I think he's kind of in the same boat I am, trying to figure his team out a little bit. They're competitive. They're talented. They've had real good moments, and I'm sure there's some moments he'd like to have back. No different than me. He's got some new parts. He's got a freshman point guard. It's hard to win with freshmen at any place, especially a point guard. So, I'm sure that I get the feel from watching on tape that he's enjoying this team, and I think it's a team that's built for February as they continue to understand the new responsibilities, the new people. I'm still not as deep into them as I'd like. I kind of used Monday and Tuesday to really spend a lot of time breaking us down. So I started kind of putting my arms around them yesterday. I'll continue to do that rest of the day today, and have a lot better feel about what I think about their team tomorrow. But I think his team's built for February. And what do I mean by that? Is that they'll be playing their best ball in February, and because they've got some, I think they got 3 grad transfers, if I'm not mistaken. They got older guys that'll stay the course. They're not going to overreact to good and bad days, and a freshman point guard who's good, who will continue to get better. So I think in February they'll be playing their best ball, and then that's what Brad does too. He does a heck of a job.
You mentioned breaking your team down on Monday and Tuesday. What have you learned about your team, the good and the bad, over those 2 days?
Yeah, the good is that we're not that far away. Northern Iowa is a really good basketball team, and you were there. You saw that game. I thought we showed some of our capabilities against a high level opponent in that game, offensively. We've got to become. I don't like using the word tough. I said this to you guys the other day. Tough, just kind of too bland a word, too simple a word. Personality is a better word. When I first got here, our locker room had no personality. Michael Carrera took that personality on, and he gave everyone around him confidence, even though he had no idea what he was doing. But he made everyone feel like, I got it. Sindarius took that on, where no one in the locker room ever doubted that we had a chance because he had that personality. We're searching for that right now. Mike is trying, but I don't know if Mike's personality is as strong as the other 2 guys I just mentioned. And we've got to get better on the ball defensively. We're not. And the only thing that gives me saving grace is Sindarius and Dwayne were not very good on-ball defenders when they got here. And we're asking some guys that are doing it for the first time to really get better at it. That's the bad. Our on-ball defense, anytime we've played a team that has the personnel that presents dribble drive challenges, we have not fared well defensively. When we play teams that don't have dribble drive guys, we actually defend okay. So we've got to get a lot better there. The plus is like, let's stay on the defensive side. Go play Houston. We turned them over 17 times. That's twice as many as they average. They average 15 offensive rebounds a game. I think they had 11 or 12, 3 of which came in the last couple minutes of the game where it just, it was over. We had a couple guys, I don't say they threw the towel in, but we didn't play with the same that we had earlier in the game. And so we are doing some things the right way. and we're not that far away. We have to score. We got to score, right? It's John. That's the other. When I reflect and I look back, every time I've had a team with young guards, we don't shoot it well early in the year. Think of A.J. Lawson last year, the beginning of the year. He couldn't make a shot to save his life. And as the year goes on, they kind of settle in and they start making shots. And no different with Sindarius and Dwayne and keep going, And so I'm at peace that those guys work at it and that they're high-character kids that eventually will feel that ball go in the basket and start happening on a more regular basis.
When you search for that personality, that guy that stands out, is this a good platform for it on the road against a rivalry team? Like, can you really, is that one of your main hopes, obviously, out of this game on Sunday, to see someone emerge kind of in that environment with that on that stage?
I would hope so. I kind of look for it against Houston because, like, for example, we've played two teams that are really, really big and physical. From that standpoint, I'm talking about from the point guard to the center to their depth, and that's Wichita and Houston. And in both games, there was a really, really physical game. And in both games, we got really, really, really quiet. And I don't think that's something you force anyone into. I never had to tell Sindarius to stand up and give the team a personality, or Carrera or Denny Clemente, or keep going on down the line, Jacob Paul, whoever, even from my high school days, Haslam or whoever. Those guys just did it. Those guys just did it. It's they're willing to take on that responsibility. You can't force that responsibility on people that are not comfortable in it. I'm hoping that because let's get something straight here now. It's not like we're sitting here at 3-7 trying to survive. We're in a good place. We're not in a great place, but we're in a good place. And we've got great opportunities in front of us before conference play. So we have to hope that as we keep trying to do our jobs as coaches, to educate, to make them understand what's needed. Everyone knows what you need to win. Like, everyone knows. To win, you got to do. But then you get in the real fight, and there's things that prevent you from winning. It's accepting those and changing those that differentiates teams that learn how to win from the teams that learn how to lose. And we're in the middle of that right now. And I don't think they're running away from the things we have to get away from because they prevent us from winning. But I never get concerned during the season. I get concerned about people off the court. I don't get concerned about people in basketball. But for our ability to grow a little faster, maybe. Here's the only thing. I thought we'd grow a little faster than we have. And I'm not talking about winning and losing. I'm talking about that personality of our team. And it hasn't happened. But I heard a great line is that every flower blooms differently. And all you can do is keep putting water on it and hope that it blooms one day. And that's what we're going to keep doing with our guys. It's you can't make that flower bloom faster than it's supposed to. But we need that personality to start getting a little louder and a little stronger.
Frank, when you have freshmen and transfers who maybe didn't grow up in this state with this rivalry, can they grasp the importance of the rivalry and the scope of the rivalry before they play in it the first time?
Yeah, Rick, it's I'm glad you asked that because Chuck Martin did a wonderful thing yesterday. We finally got some graphics put up in our locker room area over at the Coliseum, and one of the great things that we had never done around here that we're finally starting to do for our sport is to give our players a representation of all that have come before them. And, Chuck took our guys through that. We have a great display now, and it's a timeline. as we walk from the locker room to the court, and it's all along the wall, it's a timeline of black and white action shots of guys that played here in the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, and you start getting into color all the way up to Chris Silva. And it's a beautiful display. And Chuck took our players, to your point, and explained to them just how important this game is to all those guys that have come, through before them. So they understand what that game means to so many people. Chuck called me last night. He goes, "I had to do that, Frank." I said, "I'm glad you did." I don't tell I don't tell coaches what to do. I share with coaches what I want done, and then I let them do it in their flavor. And he knows that I've probably, to your point, Rick, me not being from here, I probably didn't put my arms around this game as tightly as other people do. It's just the way I'm cut. It's not. I was at K-State. The Kansas game to me was just the next game on the schedule. Every game to me is a game. There's not one game that means more than the other. They all are worth the same amount. And I don't mean to be so lifeless to that approach. It's just the way I am. But we've done a better job of educating our players of what this game means to so many people. And Chuck did that yesterday. But we also have some things now to make all those young guys that you're speaking about, to show them the history of this place and the importance of them owning up to the responsibilities that they accepted when they put the name on the paper and said they want to play basketball here. And that's something that needs to continue to happen around here. And then I'm going to say it. I said it the other day. I'm going to say it again. I'm going to knock on wood. I think this will be the first time we play Clemson with a healthy roster since Michael Carrera's senior year. So what's that mean? I'm not trying to create excuses for not winning. We haven't won. But I'd like to go into this game with a team that's excited because of who the opponent is, what it means to the state, what it means to this university, and because it's the next game on the schedule.
Frank, you've spoken about this before, and obviously this year it's not your deal, but how difficult is it to try to schedule this game, where you can get the students in the stands because of exam break? What are the challenges you face in trying to get the biggest possible crowd for this game, considering how the schedule falls?
I don't think people publicize this game the way it's publicized, and Brad and I laugh about it, the way it's publicized for football and baseball. I mean, there's probably articles written already about next year's Clemson football game. There's probably publications already showing the weekend dates of the Clemson baseball series. No one really speaks about our game with Clemson until the day before the game. And so I don't that's why it's just, to me, who was new here, it's always been just another game on the schedule for me. Because I don't feel that. Now, when you don't win, you feel it the next day. People that want to show up and say, "Man, I can't believe you lost to Clemson. Don't you know we're supposed to beat Clemson around here?" Yeah, I figured that one out by now. I've been here 8 years. But there's not that build-up to the game. I've shared this with you before, David. Brad and I have spoken about trying to find a date that works. We've played it before December, and we've had less students attend games than when we've played it now. And we didn't want our game overshadowed by the football game, which is what used to happen. And I know maybe some people don't like that. Brad and I coach basketball. We'd like for people to speak about our basketball game, not that there's a basketball game being played on the weekend of the football game. So we've agreed to do it here. The attendance numbers have been good. I know we went up there 2 years ago. I couldn't find an open seat in that building 2 years ago. The largest student attendance that we've had for the Clemson game was the Final Four year when PJ was here. I'm not talking about the most students at a game. I'm talking about most students at a Clemson game. was that game. So Brad and I are trying to create the interest for our game, not for our game as part of something else.
How would you evaluate A.J. Lawson's first, 10 games this year?
He's grown. He's been a little inconsistent, offensively. His defense has been lacking. And what makes it great about coaching him is that he understands it, and he doesn't pout. He doesn't run away from it. I think we've been able to help him. We've played a bunch of games right off the bat. And when you play a lot of games, one on top of the other, I kind of felt like a football coach now. You got time on Sunday and Monday to kind of watch your own film so you can be prepared for that Tuesday practice. I think we've been able to help him and guys on our team with some of the stuff we got to get better because we haven't been I know this sounds simple and excuse me, it sounds complicated, but it really is simple. If you play Tuesday and you play Saturday, you got to take Wednesday off, the way the week falls. So you can't meet with players to show them what they're doing wrong on Wednesday. If you do, you get fired, okay? School gets put on probation. We're not doing that. So when you come in Thursday, if you spend time trying to show mistakes, you're creating, this is the way I teach, you create a negative mindset going into a moment where you're trying to be productive on a day where you start preparing for your Saturday opponent. So when we don't have those windows, I am about the next game. Whatever the assistant, including myself, whoever the assistant that had, like, let's say, what was the game we went pretty quick there? Who did we play before we went to Cancun? Gardner-Webb. And we were in Gardner-Webb to Wichita State. Whoever had the Gardner-Webb game has to break that film down. So when I'm ready to talk about it, they can tell me what they saw after the game I'm talking about. Gardner-Webb game ends, I separate from the game, and I'm immediately preparing for the next opponent. So I want our players to do the same thing. Now that we've had time, I think A.J., because he's such a character kid, he's such a wants to please people kind of person, he's been very receptive to what he needs to do better. But with all that said, without him out there, instead of 6-4, we're probably 3-7. So it's, he's carrying a burden. I tried to explain that to you guys the other day. He was protected defensively behind him because he had Mike Kotsar, who's as good a team defender from the big spot as I've probably been around. And the other guy that was back there, I don't know if you guys have paid attention, but he's a rotation player on one of the best teams in the NBA because of his defense and rebounding. So A.J. was protected because of those two guys behind him. And then Hassani would always take on the top offensive guard on the other team. Now A.J.'s having to take on that responsibility and take on the responsibility of scoring and not having the same kind of protection behind him. He's taking it on. He's not running. When guys run away from it, I worry. He's trying to grow from it.
Yeah, sticking with AJ, is it more mental or physical with him from a defensive side? You explained what he's going through, but in terms of getting him to the point where you want him to be defensively, is it more technical or is it more mental?
John, it's a combination of both, and it's a matter of guys learning to trust each other. I'll give you an example. Whoever I play at the 5 doesn't understand our defensive concepts as well, so teams are throwing the ball to that guy in an area which then exposes our guards if they're denying. That didn't happen the last 2 years. Mike and Chris would not allow the entry past their bigs at elbows or top of the key or that kind of stuff. So then our guards can be a lot more aggressive in denying and extending offenses further out on the floor. So when you extend people, you have more time to recover when they attack you off the dribble individually, and your help can be available earlier rather than at the rim. People are attacking us that way. Jair, he's been inconsistent at guarding the ball. So when you play Houston, they're coming at you. They're entering it to their 5, and now you're on your heels the whole time. So it's hard to be aggressive. So what happens is your guards in our schemes, they don't get out and deny as aggressively because they don't want to get beat backdoor because the ball's being allowed to be caught in certain areas. So if you don't defend before your man catches the ball, it's really, really hard to defend good players. Good basketball players, not talented basketball players, big difference. Good basketball players, they're trying to catch the ball at their spot. When they catch it at their spot, they're hard to defend. And that's what's happening to AJ a little bit. He's allowing people to catch the ball on their spot, and then it's really, really hard to defend. But our biggest issue, it's not just him individually, it's collectively, being better guarding the ball on the half-court line. And whoever I play other than Mike Kotsar, not allowing their man to catch the ball in a place where then exposes our guards denying. Because when that happens, then guys aren't going to deny. And if guys are not denying, great. Then that puts an unbelievable burden on being able to guard the dribble because they're one bounce away from getting a shot. And right now, that's where we're at. And we've got to keep working to get better at that.
Academic responsibilities kind of drop off for the next couple of weeks with exam week, breaking the semester. Just how big will that be for this team, especially in that front court with all that inexperience besides Mike?
Yeah, I think it's huge, but it's also huge when you got guys that embrace it. Today, we got guys taking finals as we speak. In about, probably an hour from now, I think there's one guy with a final tomorrow morning. We're done. It eliminates, first of all, they see that they achieve in their finals because I don't stress them this week as much as, I don't worry about what other people do, but some guys like to have 2-a-day practices and all that stuff. That's great. We might have 1 or 2 next week. But this week I hated finals week. I'm telling you, finals week, I drank, other than Diet Cokes, I drank some other stuff back then, and be a bad week for me. No sleep, a lot of caffeine, a lot of other stuff, just edge. I was miserable. Probably why it took me 10 years to graduate. But so I try not to stress them. So we try to use a lot of this time this week to teach. Done a lot of film this week, something we haven't, something we haven't had a chance to do. But yes, I'm a big believer that the easiest way to help people grow is by teaching, not getting them to memorize a chapter. You can run 100 plays and they can memorize all the plays. If they don't understand how to play, the plays don't work. It's you got to teach. You got to help them broaden their thoughts, expand their minds, and that's what we've been trying to do this week. Next week, we'll spend a lot more time in the gym. But the best part about this is that from tomorrow at 10 a.m. or so, up until January 7th.
No, it's the next week.
Whatever, right in there. Yeah, somewhere in there. It's a free mind, man. It's basketball. There's going to be a 4-day window there where they get to go home, take a deep breath, enjoy their family, sit on a couch, and then everything's basketball. And you can watch film. You're not limited to the 20 hours. I tried to explain that to you guys the other day. If you got 2 games in a week, that's 8 of your 20 hours are committed to the game. Whether the game takes 2 hours or it takes 5 hours, it's a 4-hour commitment per game. So that means you're left with 12 hours for the week. Well, if you practice 4 days, 2.5 hours a day, that's just practice. I think you know where the math puts you at then. So then you're left with a smaller window for player meetings, for meeting with them as a whole, for showing film. It's hard to get the amount of information across that you're trying to get across.
You mentioned obviously before the season started kind of figuring your team out over these first couple games. Do you feel like you've gotten a better handle on your rotation, the guys you like playing, and how close is this team to kind of figuring out its identity and that personality you talked about?
Absolutely. This is my wife texting me, so if you don't mind, because you okay if I reply to her real quick? She's trying to manage the deal at the house. Yeah, I'm okay with you guys being mad. I ain't good with her being mad. And don't take it personal, but if I'm in a meeting with her and you guys text me, I'm not replying. I've learned a lot about our team. I've learned that I like our team. I've learned that I like the guys on our team. I've learned that some guys on our team trying to figure out what word to use because I don't want it to sound negative, are not as competitive as I thought they were. I don't know how else to say it. Will that ever change? I don't know. But you don't learn these things in recruiting. You don't learn these things in preseason workouts. I've learned from our team. I think I spoke about it after our Houston game. I thought we were going to be a pretty good perimeter defend the dribble team. Well, we're not a great dribble drive team. So in our practices, I always thought we were doing a good job of defending the dribble, but in reality, we're very average at defending the dribble. I can't learn that unless I got guys that are great dribble drivers. Well, we've been playing teams that come at us off the bounce. We're real good players. And when they do, we've had some issues with it. So it's allowed me to identify things that back in October and even early part of November, I thought we had a chance to be good at earlier in the year. But I like the personality of our team. I want us to be louder. I want us to be more confident. I want us to be more aggressive. I think we're a little passive. And I tell them all the time, when our players are aggressive, then I can be passive. When our players are passive, then I get too aggressive. And when I get overly aggressive, I think I do a really bad job of coaching. And we have to connect and make that a little better.